Hey, how are you doing, guys? Sorry for the delay. I've been a bit late tonight. There's a lot of stuff to do. Hope you are doing well. This is going to be a very interesting yet very short presentation, I think. I'm gonna start drawing after the stream, after this one. It's kind of short because it doubles down a bit on the stress videos that we have done previously. And I think that next week I'm gonna handle different stuff like that. Today is about procrastination, but I have some plans to address also imposter syndrome, for example. That you are not worthy and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty nice. It's going to build on top of what we have discussed last week. So technically it should be kind of easy to understand. Anyways, so today is about procrastination. As always, we're gonna try to get some actionable advice for the different case studies. I kind of like that format. I've not bothered to search for some articles about how to fix procrastination, whatever. Let's not be mean. Let's just cut off the bullshit and stick to what's interesting. A bit late, so that's why it's going to be a bit shorter. But starting on next week, it's going to be again on the usual size. So, just to double down on the previous videos, I just want to remember everyone of the definition of stress and anxiety. Stress, it's a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. The problem is that it can make you feel irritable, anxious, not able to enjoy yourself or your time at work or while being a student or while doing art. It can make you feel worried about the time and it's wasting a bit everything. It's also a vicious circle because it can affect your sleep, your focus, your overall health, your overall mood, and your social interaction with other people. I want to expand a bit on that. I think I talked a bit about that previously. Hello, sweetie. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well.
Hello.
Yeah. I want to expand a bit on that. I think I discussed about that on some other streams, but let's keep working on that. I still believe that our brain has only one job, is to keep us alive at whatever the cost. Our brain is kind of here to recognize every situation, every pattern that we experience, and find a positive solution for that situation to have the most positive outcome towards the fact that we survive. And if possible, that we thrive. But priority is surviving. So the brain is only reacting, and it is kind of unable to have some kind of notion of time, in my opinion. You're like, what does that mean? Let me give you an example. When you feel anxiety, for example, you're thinking about the potential failure, something that has an uncertain outcome. And you're like, oh my God, if I do that, something bad will happen. And as a result, you're projecting yourself already in the future, that you're experiencing stress and imagining the feeling or the experience of that negative outcome already. So for the brain, or at least when we are experiencing anxiety, uncertain outcome or potential failure is already seen as immediate failure right now. It's experienced as real immediate failure and generating anxiety and stress out of that. So it's kind of tough because it's a vicious circle. The more you want to step out of your comfort zone, the more stress you will feel. And the more it will feed anxiety and procrastination. In today's case, it's just like when the anxiety or the stress or the pressure is too strong and you're like, okay, instead of addressing that stressful situation, that uncertain outcome, let's play the ostrich. Let's find a hiding place. Let's try to avoid that and go back to a comfort zone, to something that we feel safe inside it. So for example, let's say you have that huge piece of homework to deliver next week and you're a bit late. It's a bit overwhelming. It's a bit hard, a bit tired. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna play Overwatch, or I'm gonna play a video game or watch a movie or stuff like that, instead of addressing that issue. The problem with that, again, is that it's a vicious circle. And basically, as you are procrastinating, like playing Overwatch or whatever, it might distract you from thinking about that, but still deep in your head, there's a tiny voice telling you, hey, you need to do that. Still have this render to do, still have this homework to do, and eventually time is passing, time is running. At some point you feel some guilt, you feel some even stronger uneasy feeling, and you are even more tempted to procrastinate again. So that's how it kind of feeds upon anxiety. It can kind of ruin you. Because let's say at some point you address that, you still have the guilt of not having done that sooner. Guilt is kind of a bad feeling. So we don't need that. I want to start talking about procrastination with something kind of cool. It's a law generally used in business and productivity, like office work and stuff like that. It's called Parkinson's law, which basically says that any task, the time it needs, it expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So let's say a task is given to you, you have a deadline of 3 months, it will take 3 months. The same task is given to you, you only have 2 days, it will expand on 2 days only. Basically, every task that is given to you will take as much time as possible within the time that is given to you. That's something you can notice a lot when you are at school, for example. Or when you have to do some speed paints. It's like, okay, I have only 1 hour to do that painting. And if you do that seriously, strangely enough, you can that surprising yourself with what you are able to produce in 1 hour. That's happening every year when I'm teaching. Every time they have a surprise speed paint or stuff like that. Of course, they are stressed. It's a bit tough for them. But in the end, all of them, they are always like, oh my God. I'm kind of surprised in a very good way and positive way by what I've been able to do in 1 hour. And that's basically Parkinson's law. Could it be better? Of course. But for 1 hour, for the given amount of time, journey, you are surprising yourself. And I really like a second law called Pareto's law that is, again, used in productivity and business, which is that basically 80% of the income or outcome, 80% of the outcome of any task is produced by 20% of the work. Which is basically, let's say you are in a company, 80% of the value created by the company is done by 20% of the people. When you are doing a painting, technically 80% of the work is done in 20% of the time. And it's refining, it's detailing and stuff like that, but you are laying out the more important stuff, then going to specific and more specific and more specific and more specific. And the more specific you go, the more time consuming it is. But generally, let's say you are working 10 hours on a piece. 80% of the piece should be laid out in like 2 hours. And then it's just refining. The main idea is already laid out on the picture. Those two laws, these are pretty useful. Because if you use them properly, first of all, you realize that having very long deadline might not be the best for you. Because at the beginning, you're like, oh, I have the time for that. So you are not working as much as you can. And as much as you go closer and closer to the deadline, you are kind of doing all the work while crying. There's a meme about that. You see this kind of stuff. Work begins. You're like, fuck off, I don't give a crap about that. Then you are panicking. And then you are doing all the work while crying in the end. And eventually, your work might be kind of good. You are completely exhausted. You hate yourself. But it's done. And you realize that it has been done in a very short amount of time. And basically, the task expanded to basically consume all the time that has been given to you. So at the beginning, you didn't really care. You were still thinking you were working on that, like, hey, I'm grabbing some reference, I'm pushing some pixels and some polygons. And the closer and closer you get to the deadline, the more efficient you are. Put a 1 in the chat if that happens to you. I'm gonna lead the charge. Anyways, we're only 5 persons. But yeah. So let's say this is 2 weeks. This is the last day. There's no difference in your productivity between working 15 days with that, oh, I will do that later mindset, or just working the last day and producing everything. Of course, something in between is probably the best, because with that, you're burning yourself, and with that, you're not being productive. Plus, you're stressing a lot. But basically, let's say you have only 1 day. You only have the green part. You might add a bit of orange part, but you are stressing for only one day, not for 3 or 4 days before. And you are not getting this gnawing feeling in your mind, like, hey, I need to start, I need to start, I need to start. At some point, you're like, fuck, I've done nothing, and you are doing all the work while crying. If you only have one day, you're like doing all the work while crying, you're avoiding all the rest. Sorry, still sick. But hey, that's basically Pareto's law. 80% of the result is done in 20% of the time and the amount of effort. So basically, if you add that to Parkinson's law, you're like, okay, I can get very tight deadlines and be very efficient with that because I only need to do within that deadline 10% of the work correctly to get 80% of the results. See what I mean? This is a way to cut corners without shrinking too much and trimming too much, so much that it's not good anymore. And this is a way to put yourself against the wall and you're like, okay, I have no choice, there's no escape. Because basically all the work while crying part is when you are cornered, you have no escape anymore. You're like, okay, I still have one night to do my homework, otherwise I'm dead. So finally, it's stressful and important enough that you care. So, I want to talk about the different archetypes of procrastinators. There are 5 in my opinion. Some are pretty similar to each other. And as always, I'm going to do my best to give some actionable advice for any of them. The first one, the first case, it's like the perfectionist. Basically, you are a perfectionist if you set extremely high expectation on basically everything that you are doing, or that you plan to do. And basically, you fear that you will fail. So in order not to fail, you do not start. Make sense to you? And just by that definition, you set extremely high expectation and fear that you will fail. You are basically setting yourself for failure right from the start. Because if you set incredibly high expectations, of course you know that the odds of failing are higher. And this is kind of a way to how can I say that? This is a way to sabotage yourself. It's like, hey, it's so big, it's so high. Well, why even bother? Why should I even try, basically? As I said, you are missing all the shots that you are not taking. So, this case is pretty common, especially in art school. Especially with the pressure that school can give you with the grade and stuff like that. I know that I'm in the very perfectionist mindset too, so I can relate to that for sure. And my TLDR biggest advice for that is just to set tight deadline. Because you get into the perfectionist stuff if you have a very long schedule, a very long deadline. If you acknowledge that the deadline is very short, and it's like, oh, I'm aware that it's a bit above my capacity, so I need to cut corners. So I know, in any case, it won't be perfect. So in that case, basically you don't have a limited amount of time. You need to deliver something at that point. And you are already putting yourself in the green zone, like doing all the work while crying. But in that case, you acknowledge right from the start that it won't be perfect, but I will do my best. I know I'm able to do very nice stuff because I'm perfectionist. And if I can do 80% of the work in 20% of the time, now with the 80% remaining time that I have, I can use my perfectionistic mindset to go into details, to polish my art, and to add the stuff that will kind of comfort me. But for that, you need first to be very efficient, and setting very tight deadline is the best way to do. That's something that I do a lot with some clients, a lot of pesky clients, especially when you are working for illustrations. Sometimes they don't pay you daily, but they pay you just, this is basically a price for the piece. So basically, let's say you have a poster to do for like 2k euros, which is kind of okay. Sometimes they will tell you, hey, you have 2 months to do that. And if you are not careful, you're gonna be okay. That's okay. You're starting to get some feedbacks. And generally, if the client is very pesky, very picky, very perfectionist, that's why you fall into that trap of having someone wasting your time. Because basically, they will ask you, hey, can you touch up that thing, then that thing, then that thing, then that thing. And they will exploit your 2 months worth of time to always try to squeeze you more and more and more and more for more details. But they don't really care. It's just that, hey, the deadline is not over. Let's squeeze that guy because we can. So you need to protect yourself against that. And for that, generally, something that I start to do. Hello, kitty. How are you doing? In order to protect yourself from that, something you can do. Let's say your client is like, hey, I want this illustration to be done in 2 months. You are like, okay, of course, if you can afford to do that. But something that I start to do is like, no, it won't be done in 2 months. It will be done in 2 weeks. They're like, oh. I like that. Nani? First, you need to reassure them. You need to earn their trust, of course. But if they know you, they know your work, that's fine. But something that it will do is like, they will acknowledge that they only have 2 weeks worth of work with you. So they can't be too lazy on the feedbacks. In that case, they need to be very efficient in the feedbacks because after 2 weeks, they won't have you anymore available. So this is a way to protect your time and to condense all the work within 2 weeks of work. Basically, you are flipping the script. And it's good for both you and the client because you will have to be efficient. So you can procrastinate like, oh, it's in 2 months. I can wait 1 month and start it later after these clients work. And generally clients hate that because they're like, hey, we paid that guy already. We started the process. He's not giving any signs of life for 1 month. It's kind of creepy. It's kind of scary. Does he really care? Is he really motivated? Kind of a red flag. He's not very available, stuff like that. But in 2 weeks, you're like, okay, oh, this guy is motivated. Let's work with that guy. He's motivating. He's pressuring us. He has good pressure. And basically, he wants it to get done good and quick, which I like in general. So yeah, this is a way to both make sure that you won't procrastinate and they won't procrastinate in their feedbacks, basically. Again, for everything, Pareto's law, you need to do the sketch, do 80% of the work in 20% of the time. Do the cleaning process, 80% of the work in 20% of the time. Once you reach the stage that the composition is validated and stuff like that, you still have some touch-ups to do, but at least you have laid out 80% of the picture in 20% of the time. And now you can afford to be perfectionist and work as you want. Make sense? The second ones, they are the experts. Basically, those are the people that need to know absolutely everything and have a plan in like 30 different steps, very detailed and exhaustive plans with all the possible outcomes. They need to basically know the movie before they watch it. They need to know everything about the subject. They need to have a plan for everything, every step, because they can't tolerate any obstacle on the road. Any slight obstacle, just a small pebble on the rock, is enough to derail them. I think in their mind, they're like, I need to have the perfect plan. I need to wait for the stars to align. I need to be in the right mood. I need to not be pussy. I need to be zen in my chakra. I need to have the inspiration. I need to have the motivation. I need to feel great. I need to be rested. My computer needs to be not buggy. I need to have this exact software. Everything needs to be perfect for them to start. I'm gonna do a shitty comparison right now. It's basically, let's say you have someone, you are pining on a guy or a girl. You're like, okay, I'm gonna wait for the perfect opportunity. I need to have the angels to sing. The stars need to align. We need to be alone together. We need to love before. And I'm gonna tell everything to that person. And it's going to be perfect. And guess what? It never happened. So for those persons, for the iceberg that needs to know basically everything and have a plan for everything before they start. First of all, I would say that if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. So basically, if you are the one and you need to have a plan for everyone else to work with you, you're probably in the wrong room and you're probably not even trusting anyone else in the room. So that might be a problem. But something you need to do, again, is a situation where it's basically, as Yoda says, do it or don't do it, but there is no try. Again, you can have a time pressure. You can have something to deliver right now. Let's say you are in a company. I had that anecdote about Ubisoft. We are doing the DLC at some point about the Olympics on Steep. And 3 days before the deadline to lock everything and put that on Steam, as the creative director, he came, he was like, hey team, hey Edward was my lead. You come to my office, we have a problem. We never come to his office. So we are like pretty stressed. We are like, oh my god, what did we do? And he was like, okay, you don't even sit down. We have a very big problem. It's going to be very short. We don't have the stadium for the Olympics game. We are like, wait, Olympics games, DLC. It's been 6 months that we're working on that. And when you think about the Olympics, the first thing that you think about is the flame and the stadiums. And we don't have the stadiums 3 days before the data log. And so I was like, okay, I know it's bad, but we have no choice. So you have one afternoon to make the concept. We're going to outsource that to India and get it done in 3 days. It was kind of stressful. We are the ones that like to have a plan, surely. But we had to do it and we did it. Was it perfect? Probably not. But at least we did it. And the project was saved. Same with the art test I had for Ubisoft. It was given to me. And basically the TLDR was like, get better on every aspect right now. And you have 4 days to do 2 pictures. And I was like, learning that would take me like 2 months. There was no choice. So that's why you find the energy and the courage to do it. Because generally about procrastination and anxiety, we suffer kind of most in our imagination than in real life. And we tend to underestimate our abilities to work under pressure. When it's a matter of almost life and death, we are very, very strong and very surprising. Like I surprised myself during the art test at Ubisoft in 4 days. I leveled up like I never did before. And I'm pretty sure that the people that got like some surprise speed paints to do in class, even though it was stressful, that's not the point, that's beside the point, it's always stressful. But I realized that they leveled up a lot and that they were able to do way more than what they thought they were able to do. You can put a 1 in the chat if you can relate to that. I'm gonna lead the charge. So yeah, you need a bit of chaos and you need to be cornered again. So perfectionist and expert, they are a bit the same. Perfectionist, it's like, I want it to be perfect. I want the result to be perfect. So why should I bother? Because it won't be. And the expert, it's like, the process needs to be flawless. It won't be, so why should I bother? In any case, You need to basically have a plan. Okay, that's fine. But you need chaos. You need freaking chaos. First one, you need deadlines. Second one, you need chaos. Chaos you can't escape. And this chaos can be a tight deadline too. A huge responsibility where you have no choice. It's like, let's say there's a bridge collapsing. You need to jump. You won't think about that. You jump. Or else you get paralyzed and you fall. That's the only way you can do. Next one. It's kind of similar to expert. It's called the solo players. It's those people that kind of feel like asking for help or failing would be a fraud. So they don't want to ask for help. They want to do everything on their own. They are generally the ones like, no, I don't need a mentor. I don't need to watch tutorials. I can learn everything on my own. I don't want to watch tutorial because I don't want to be diminished as a person or as an artist. There's a bit of ego involved in it. Sometimes, also for solo players, I've been culprit of all those profiles, by the way. But solo players, I remember when I was in high school for my high school degree, we had some presentations to do for the degree. And I was not trusting my classmate at all. I was like, I'm the best in my class. I don't trust them. They're going to ruin you, so I'm going to do everything on my own. It can be the same when then you're trying to learn something and you're like, I don't trust this professional with 15 years of experience. I'm going to learn on my own. Because it's not me. It's not my process. It's not how I want to learn. Not good for tutorials and stuff like that. Shut up. Shut up.
If you just shut the fuck up for 30 seconds, you might learn something.
Exactly. Thanks, Gordon. So again, probably it's because you are the smartest person in the room. So if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room and you need to find another room when you are the dumbest and the smallest one. This is how you learn. And more than that, for solo players, you need to find someone that is better than you, that again will corner you. A lot of those issues can be fixed by being cornered and having no choice. We're going to discuss about another quote-unquote softer way of fixing that, but generally getting someone to corner you that gets you up on your bullshit and stuff like that is the best way to avoid procrastination. So yeah, solo player need to find someone better than you. That see past your bullshit. You can't lie to them as you lie to people that are under you. Like your classmate that you hate and you're like, no, I don't want. They don't understand because they are not as good as you. If you find a mentor or someone that is a pro better than you, it's like, hey, stop lying to me again.
If you just shut the fuck up for 30 seconds, you might learn something. Stop lying to me. You're saying yes all the fucking time, yet nothing's done.
So yeah, find someone that has a way higher level than you that you can get and are accountable to. And basically this person will challenge you. You don't want someone up to your level that challenges you because it will be competition. You want someone way better than you that challenges you. Basically, you being challenged is against yourself, not against your mentor, because your mentor is better than you. Basically, by that, it will force you to admit that you don't know as much as you think you know, and you will be willing to ask people better than you how to do that. This is very important inside a company, for example, because this is a mistake you can make as a junior. For example, you have a problem, but because you are scared or because you have your ego, you're like, no, I'm not gonna ask anyone about that problem. And eventually, months after, once that problem becomes so big, it's like, why haven't you asked us? And boom, you are cornered and you are like, I don't know. I was not feeling comfortable asking you about that. Well, it will be, when in doubt, ask your lead. You're here for that. It's normal. You're a junior. You're here to learn. But you don't want to be stuck with a mistake and get that mistake to compound over time. So, for the solo players that don't want to be seen as vulnerable in front of people that are lower than you, stop caring about them and just try to find someone that is better than you, that see through your mask. In any case, you will be a bit vulnerable. It's hard. But this person will be able to basically tell you what to do and challenge you positively towards what you need to address. And that's how you fix that. You see, all the time, you can channel those problems towards something productive. You're a perfectionist. Use Pareto's law. You become very efficient, then you have plenty of time to refine your stuff. You are expert. Basically, stop planning everything. Get yourself a deadline. Get yourself cornered. Challenge you to stick through that, and you will use your expertise to figure out the way on your own. It's like you're a snowboarder. You are dropped on a new mountain that you don't know. You still have the expertise of years and years of snowboarding, being able to navigate the snow and read when there are some cliffs where the snow might be rideable or not. And worst case scenario, you get kind of surprised by the terrain. Technically, you have experience and you can rely on that to get out of a tricky situation. So you can utilize your expertise. Sorry. You're a solo player. Again, you are very independent. Technically, you are kind of an expert already. But you are technically being dragged down by your consideration towards people lower than you. You are putting yourself in a crap bucket. So find someone that is better than you, that will challenge you, push you, and toughen you. And you can use the fact that you are independent and able to work solo and to figure out things on your own to be able to address that new, very brand new challenge that your coach or mentor or people better than you will give you. It's a new opportunity for you to learn, basically. Next one's pretty similar again. It's called the natural genius. It's someone that is kind of natural at something. Like you are naturally talented at music, at drawing, stuff like that. But the problem is twofold. First of all, you are not used to learn because everything is so simple to you. And secondly, you are not used to feel vulnerable because you have always been that smart kid in the class, something like that. Again, if you are the smartest person in the class or in the room, you're in the wrong room. The problem is that if you stay like that, at some point you will reach a plateau. Because we all reach our maximum at some point when we are learning on our own. It's more or less important depending on the persons. But a lot of time, at some point we stagnate and we need to go further and we don't know how. And if you stick to doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. So, again, you have two options for that. First one might be to find someone that challenges you. Again, finding some kind of mentor or people that is better than you, that see past your current level, that is able to spot your mistakes and teach you how to address that. The second way you can do that if you don't have a mentor, that I did a lot when I quit school, is to pick an absolutely impossible task, something way, way, way beyond what you are able to do. For example, my task when I quit Ubisoft was like, hey, I'm gonna model, texture, render, and matte paint an entire city. And I want at least 100 million polygons packed into 4 gigs of VRAM. Done in Octane, which I never used before. Took me 3 months, but eventually, even though the pieces were not as numerous or as good as I wanted, they were still amongst my best pieces. And I learned so much because there was so much issues all the time that were getting me out of comfort zone. I didn't know how to model very well. I didn't know how to texture. I didn't know how to do multi-mite. I didn't know how to optimize things with instances in Octane. I didn't know how to scatter properly things in a city. I didn't know how to optimize the render settings. I didn't know how to do realistic matte painting with like the different foreground, the middle ground, the background, stuff like that, moving and being cut properly. So it taught me to be clean. It taught me to optimize things. It taught me how to model stuff. It taught me a metric ton of new techniques to scatter things into instance object. So even though it was not as good as I wanted, those 3 months were amongst the best learning experience I got, the biggest step ahead in terms of leveling up. So basically get someone that will challenge you beyond your abilities, that is able to guide you through that. So it needs to be someone better, or else pick something that is so beyond your level. Not just a bit, but way, way, way beyond your level. For example, if I had to pick something right now, it will be, okay, I need to be able to produce a shot from Arcane, the League of Legends series. So everything, camera moving, landscape, different matte paints, 3D, rendering, texture. I need to do something like that. I don't know how to model properly for limited production. I don't know how to texture properly in that style. I don't know how to composite fog and stuff like that in 3D renders. I don't even know how to do fog. I need to render. I need to make sure it renders kind of fast and good without bugs. I need to learn Nuke to composite that. That's stuff outside of my zone of comfort. So I will learn. Because basically, if you want to learn, instead of learning something new, just fix something you don't know. You reach a point where you don't know, that's a new opportunity to learn, to level up. And by picking something impossible, you're constantly meeting those thresholds, those walls that you need to overcome. Of course, it's very painful because all the time you're like, oh, I'm in front of something I don't know, I'm not used to that. But at least you are in a safe environment if you are challenging yourself with that or with someone better than you. Because you're like, okay, it's only me against myself. It's not me against the world. So I don't have to show that to anyone. Plus, I can hide it in my photo if it's still bad. There's no pressure. Just me against me. If it's with your mentor should not be judgmental. Or not judgmental in a destructive way. So this person should be, okay, you're struggling with that. Try that. Do this. Do that. Do that. That's exactly what Jama did with us. But yeah, pick something impossible. Break yourself against it and you will level up a lot. But don't pick something that is already within your reach, that you already know. Because if you already know it, there's no difficulty and you are not learning. And plus you are reinforcing the habit of sticking to your comfort zone and reinforcing the habit of not being able to feel vulnerable, basically. So we have seen perfectionist, experts, natural genius, solo players. There's another one. Yeah, two other ones. The next one, it's the very ultra ambitious people. It's very close. It's a mix between solo players, expert, and perfectionist. Basically, you want to do so much in so little time. You have so many different projects at the same time. You want to do everything. And it's so big, it's so overwhelming. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do a 500 frame animation, then I'm gonna do that photorealistic render, then I'm gonna do this and this and this and this and this and this, and in your mind, every time it's like adding a brick to your shoulder. At some point you crumble. It's called stress. Because the more ambitious you get, the more roadblocks there are and the more stressful it is. At some point there are some people that are so big and ravenous ambitions, they don't know how to break it down to smaller steps, that basically it's like looking at a giant. You're like, oh my god, how do I do that? And sometimes you're like, fuck, it's so big, I don't know how to do it. Fuck it, I won't do it. That's the principle of stress. Back to the definition: adverse or demanding circumstances, and anxiety, uncertain outcome. So, for that, two things. Instead of picking more stuff to do, pick harder stuff to do, but less. Similar to Natural Genius. So just work smarter, not harder. You prefer basically quality of execution instead of quantity. So if for the month you had 500 frame animation plus photorealistic rendering and stuff like that, it's better to do one thing well till the end rather than do shit on everything else. Again, you can use Pareto's law, which is the 80% of outcome done in 20% of time if you want. And you can also set yourself tighter deadlines. This way you are doing a bit of everything and you are forcing yourself to be efficient on every stage. Workaholic or the ultra ambitious is basically a sum of all the other procrastination types. Also, so use Pareto's law plus Parkinson's law. And also, if you have a very, very big task, pick only one very big, but don't consider it as a big one. Instead, you need to break it down into smaller and smaller and smaller steps until you can handle them individually. Then you have a list, you have a plan. Pick the first one, get it done. Next, 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 next. And on every of them, you are using Pareto's law, the 20-80. You're putting yourself a very tight deadline. Like, okay, today for my city, I need to have model the entire castle. Tomorrow, I need to have 3 buildings. At the end of the week, I need to have all my buildings done and texture. So first day, the castle. Second day, 3 buildings. Third day, 3 buildings. 4th day, texture castle. 5th day, texture buildings. Boom, done at the end of the week. Next, I have like 1 day to scatter the castle. And 1 day to scatter the city. And 1 day to scatter the roads. And all the details. Okay, that's 3 days. And you try to fraction everything to put yourself in front of a wall, basically. To corner yourself. And basically you try to stick to those very tight deadlines. If it's not perfect, you find a way to cut the corners. Again and again and again. Again, it's better to be done instead of perfect. There's a video called Done Not Perfect by Jack Parker that is kind of a mantra. And it sums up pretty much how it goes. If you're waiting for it to be perfect all the time, you will not finish anything. In the industry, that's not what people want. They want it to be done as good as possible. But perfect is infinite amount of time. And nobody can afford that. Everyone wants that. Of course, every client wants that for the least amount of money as possible. But you need to protect yourself against that. So yeah, pick one big task that is very daunting and split it into smaller and smaller tasks until you can handle that individually. This way, the small task, you just need one to get started and a second one and you bounce one after another. It's motivating because you know that every day is a new step towards the goal. And those steps help you keep track of the long road. Basically, the main problem with procrastination in general is, again, adverse or demanding circumstances and uncertain outcomes. So the problem with that is generally, let's say you are playing a video game, like an RPG. It's like, okay, you kill 20 of those bats and you get a sword. Then you bring that hammer to the blacksmith and you get a sharpening stone to put your sword at +1. Then you kill the dragon, you get the +3 sword. Then you do that quest, you get the armor and stuff like that. It's very railroaded, because basically they dangle a concrete carrot in front of you. It's like, do this concrete thing and you get this concrete reward. But when you are doing art, it's like, okay, I'm gonna work on my anatomy for months, if not years, and one day I will be able to draw a good character. So working on anatomy for months, there's no way to qualify or quantify that precisely. It's not like, hey, draw 1,000 hands and you are a pro. No, it's not like that. It's as much as possible. It's like an endless grind. That's why it's kind of daunting and uncertain outcome. Plus, it's demanding because there's no limit to what you can train, basically. That's why it's kind of daunting. Plus, the reward of being good at character design. Again, it's abstract. It's not a +1 Vorpal sword. It's kind of abstract. So that's why procrastination is stronger right here. And generally we tend to refuge into movies or video games because it's instant gratification. It's like, if I watch this movie, I'm going to have this reaction. If I play that game and I do this, I'm going to have this reward and stuff like that. But just to stick to the video game example, let's say you play Overwatch again. You're playing in normal mode. You're like, okay, I just need to play, and I'm gonna get pleasure from playing, plus some skins, plus some gold to buy more skins and stuff like that. But then you want to play competitive. You're like, okay, I want to play because the carrot is kind of concrete. It's like a shiny weapons plus a Grandmaster logo. Okay. And then you realize it's kind of hard. Other people are competing with you. It's adverse, demanding, plus you might lose. So the result is uncertain. Plus you have teammates. So sometimes you might have competition anxiety. Again, there are still people alive in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you have competition anxiety when you're playing Overwatch. Like when you're playing normal mode, it's fine. But just the idea of playing competitive and maybe losing or getting insulted by your teammate is enough to stress you. This was my case when I was playing. Because again, it's adverse, demanding, and uncertain. So you're like, okay, I need to get better in order to level up, in order to get that shiny logo, but I can still level up, so there's no end. So the result is kind of uncertain. It's not defined precisely, it's not concrete. And even the process of getting better, if I don't break that down to different stuff, it's kind of tough. So let's say I'm not very competitive either. I'm a lot more on Destiny, because on Destiny it's way more structured. But let's say you're serious at Overwatch, for example. You pick that very daunting task of becoming better. You're like, okay, I need to improve my aim. Which, the best way to improve my aim is just to play the fucking game. Second, I need to improve my positioning. Then I need to improve my game sense. I need to fix my mistakes. So for that, maybe I would record my game. And every time I lose, I rewatch the game. I note the mistakes. I try to correct them all the time. So if I correct one mistake every day, that's 365 mistakes. And stuff like that. So I have more odds. But you need to be very serious. And a lot of people are like, no, I'm just good. It's the fault of other people. They are in like the natural genius or solo player mindset. And they don't realize that by just playing the game on autopilot, They're kind of stagnating while everyone else is grinding. And basically getting either that coach, someone that is better than you, that is in master while you're in plat, or just being able to record your game, watch your gameplay, watch you fail, and be honest with yourself. Not like, oh, it's the fault of the mouse or the controller. No. You die because you were ill positioned, because you engaged while not full life, or with cooldowns off, or stuff like that. That's 100% your fault. But you are set up for failure right from the start. If you're like, okay, I acknowledge that, I recognize the situation, I recognize that case, it's kind of common, I'm gonna pay attention to that next time. Stuff like that. That's how you fix the stuff. But generally it hurts. But generally a bit afraid of doing that, because it's like, okay, I'm gonna confront myself to my own failures. I'm gonna realize that I'm not as perfect as I am. Maybe a bit tough. Let's talk about the last one in the procrastination archetypes. It's what I call the always busy people. These ones, they are always busy. They always have something else to do. Like those people, they need to do something. They also have 36 other tasks to do in between. And strangely enough, let's say you have your homework. Strangely enough, you have to clean your house, clean your cat, trim your nail, clean your teeth, scratch the toilet, do the dishes, walk the dog, repaint your wall, put grease on your mailbox, call your parents, check your emails, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure we all know at least one person like that. They want to do something, but they are always busy. It's like, I don't have the time, buddy. I don't have time for that. Yeah, but you have time to play Overwatch. You have time to play Valorant. You have time to watch Netflix. You have time to walk your dog. You have time to do this and this and this and this and this that don't really matter right now compared to that task. That's something we have seen a lot during the lockdown last year. Pretty sure we all got people like that. But basically there was a lot of people. I'm sorry if it's hurting. Nothing against those people. But basically, at least in France, we got some lockdown financial help, basically. Where basically most of people were paid to stay at home. They were paid their regular salary or pretty close to it, just to stay at home and be safe. So it's like the dream of a lot of people to be paid to do nothing. And at the end of the lockdown, there was a lot of people, a lot of my ex-friends, for example, they were like, when we met each other again, they were like, whoa, there's been some changes. Yeah, I got coached, mentored. I did a mentorship with Yama. I was doing the gym at home every day. And I spent every day once going to the gym and getting coached was done. Trust myself, how can I make more money and work for new clients? Those were my priorities for months and months and months and months, and learn and focus on teaching people, stuff like that. Your priority for the entirety of last year was just to farm Valorant keys on Twitch and play Valorant for 14 hours. You reap what you sow.
Stupid.
And every time they're like, no, I'm busy. No, you're not busy. You're playing Valorant 14 hours per day. And you still have time to play Valorant or Rocket League or whatever at night for at least 3 hours. So don't tell me you don't have the time. It's just that you're fucking lazy. Or afraid. In any case, doesn't seem to be a motivation enough for you. If the person is fine with that, no problem. But if that person is complaining all the time, like, oh my god, I want to do that so much, but I don't have time. I wish I could. Buddy, you had 1 year paid 100% by the government to stay home. You could have done that. You could have learned that. You could have excelled at that. Maybe it would have become your new job. You didn't. It's not that you don't have time. It's that you lack motivation and discipline and probably envy to do that. Stop finding excuses. So for those people, again, honestly, the best way, same as for perfectionists and experts, is just to get fucking cornered. It needs to become a matter of life and death. If all your life, all your financial survival depending on that, you'll probably be able to do that, whatever it is. Let's say someone putting a gun on your head. It's like if you don't draw a character, probably within 3 months you die. I'm pretty sure that everyone would be able to at least draw decently a character. Because when it's a matter of life and death, when it becomes a big priority, you find the energy to do that. So yeah. We've been talking a lot about cornering ourselves, which might be a way to handle that, depending on if your personality is able to handle that pressure. Another mind trick that my mentor is telling me all the time is that basically, if you are not able to corner yourself, you need to be looking forward to go to hell, basically. You see a painful situation, you need to become as if you are looking forward to go there. So, what does that mean? Basically, something he's telling me all the time is like, the things you are afraid of the most, the things you are the most afraid of, are generally what you need to address the most. So let's say you are afraid to do character design because you have never been doing that and stressing you at work. Learning character design will probably be one of the things at work that will alleviate the most stress out of your life. Or same with, let's say you are bad at perspective. You are always cheating on the perspective. It's always trying to hide with photos. It's impossible for you to draw a proper perspective. It's stressing you out because you know you can't escape that because there will be perspective everywhere. Every time you try to do some planes, some fake perspective, but all the time your client or your teacher is always saying you, hey, do proper perspective, and then you're redoing that and it's bad, stressing you. Yeah. But if you just learned perspective for good, you hurt yourself a bit and then you're saved. A bit like, let's say there's a corridor in flame. In 5 seconds, the building is collapsing on you. You can either walk through the flame, run through the flames, burn and hurt yourself a bit, but be alive. Just do nothing and wait for the flames to eat you. It's a bit dark, I'm sorry. But yeah. Things you're afraid the most. And generally what you need the most. And if you are able to spot when you are feeling anxiety about something. Like let's say you have social anxiety. Anxiety to speak in public. Anxiety when you are in front of a piece of paper with pencil and you don't have your Wacom tablet, when you are feeling anxiety and dreaming about going back at school and having to draw characters, it becoming a nightmare because you are shit at that. Yeah, maybe all those panics, all those dreams about all those nightmares, maybe it's your brain always trying to keep you alive, sending you signals like, hey buddy, please learn that. I won't be able to save you all the time. Or maybe I am, but it's a bit taxing. It would be better for you if you finally address those things. So yeah, at some point, you are able to recognize when you are stressed, when you're feeling anxiety, when you're like, oh my god, I'm afraid of that. When you are supposed to do something and you surprise yourself, oh fuck, I'm playing Overwatch, I'm playing Destiny, I'm playing League of Legends, whatever. What was I supposed to do? Oh, I was supposed to do this task. What am I playing then? Because I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Of this thing? Because why? Because I don't know how to do that. Okay. You have already identified a problem. Now it's like, okay, let's pick that impossible task. Let's break it down to smaller and smaller and smaller steps until I can handle them individually. Let's apply Parkinson's law. Let's apply Pareto's law. Get 80% of the result done in 20% of the time and efforts. Let's slowly move on. And if on a macro level you still use Pareto's law, your big problem, your social anxiety, stuff like that, you can probably fix 80% of it in like 20% of the efforts. And minus 20% anxiety on something big is already huge, and maybe now that's manageable. So yeah. Things you are the most afraid of are generally what you need to address the most. That's pretty much it. It was supposed to be a short presentation because I started late. Gonna stick for like 30 seconds to a minute. If there are any questions, join the voice chat on the Discord. In the meantime, if you are watching on YouTube, as always, usual speech, play with the algorithm. Drop a like, drop a subscribe. Join us on Twitch if you want to talk together in real time and discuss. If you want to ask some questions directly or join the community of very motivated people, feel free to join the Discord with the link down below. And feel free to recommend the channel, the videos, if you think it might be useful for someone around you. Any questions, people? Or should I just stop the stream, restart it, and we are doing some 3D tonight? I'm gonna stop the stream. In that case, I'm stopping the stream. I'm restarting it in like 10 seconds. Just give me a sec. And we are starting to do some 3D Photoshop. Let's get back to doing the homework together. Alright. Thank you for coming, sweetie. See you in 30 seconds, guys. If you're watching on YouTube, take care.